Your voice, your vote. Newswatch 16's live election night coverage.
8 o'clock in the p.m., Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. The polls are officially closed across Pennsylvania. Almost. Good evening and welcome to our exclusive live coverage here on WNEP2. Scott Shaffer, Lisa Washington, our election analyst Corey O'Brien. Reed joins us here in the studio. Good to have you back.
Thanks,
We're going to talk more about the situation in Luzerne County. We have live reports in Luzerne County and with all the major candidates tonight. We also have John Meyer at the big board and with a lot of important information you're going to be bringing to us tonight as well.
Yeah, looking forward to sharing our election computer with everyone and breaking down the race for you. We'll give a preview for you in a minute after you set everything up.
All right, John, thanks very much. Let's begin tonight with the biggest races. Lisa, where do you think we start?
I think we start with the U.S. Senate seat. This is the one that we've been talking about since the primary, and that's going to be the interesting one. I will say right now, I don't think we're going to have those results tonight.
That's certainly with the situation in Luzerne County, that's not going to help. It's a pretty populous county. The polls are going to remain open until 10 o'clock tonight. Corey, before we get to Luzerne County, thoughts on the Senate race?
Yeah, I mean, let's remember that this is Pat Toomey's old seat. He's retiring after 2 terms. And one of the things with the Democratic Party, the Democrats have always seen this as a pickup. So tonight, with this gap narrowing, I mean, they're in a dead heat. It's going to be very interesting. At least I agree with you. I don't think we're going to know until well into maybe Tuesday, Wednesday before we really know the outcome of that race. Having said that, I would give the edge to Dr. Oz in this. You know, George Bush once said, the big mo. You know, who has the big mo? Who has the momentum? If you look at Oz from a polling standpoint, you look at Fetterman from a polling standpoint, Oz has been moving in this direction. Remember, 45% of voters in Pennsylvania are Democrats, 40 are Republican, 15 are independents. What are independents voting on? The economy. Who gets the economic vote? Republicans in a big way, 90-60. Tonight, I have a feeling that we're not going to know the outcome, but Dr. Oz, I think, is going to be in a pretty good position overall in that race.
Another dynamic to keep in mind that we have a gubernatorial race happening at the same time, and we do expect that Josh Shapiro, the Attorney General, the 2-term Attorney General of Pennsylvania, the Democratic nominee, is going to do well. All the polls show that he is in a strong position to become governor-elect tonight. Hasn't happened in Pennsylvania. At the top of the ticket, Governor, U.S. Senate. We haven't split that ticket since 1986.
Well, when was the last time that you saw coattails from a governor? Right now, you have Shapiro running ads for state house and state senate races throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I mean, they're that confident that Shapiro's got such a lead that he's actually helping other Democrats throughout the state in his own election cycle, which is very unique. So I think the Democrats feel very strong about the gubernatorial race, but I think we're an independent state. We're that Reagan, kind of state where we're purple, right? So we're not that Democrat, we're not that Republican. We're kind of right in the middle. We're moderates, and they may split it. I think that when you look at the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and you look at the way that these races have been going, the Republican on the gubernatorial side just hasn't run much of a race. On the national side, with respect to that Senate, we've seen a lot of issue ads. We've seen a lot of things going on in that race.
I agree with you that Pennsylvania is purple, and right now we're going to get to our Chris Keating, who is in Pennsylvania. He is with the Fetterman campaign there, of course, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. His headquarters tonight is in Pittsburgh, and that's where our Chris Keating is. How's it going, Chris?
Hi, Scott, Lisa, and Corey. Right now, we're live at Stage AE in Pittsburgh. Now, if you look behind me, the stage is set and ready to go for tonight's events, but it's just getting started. We expect this to be a long, long night, and we don't expect to see John Fetterman for quite some time. Now, right now, it's pretty calm in here overall. I think the doors are about to open. Some people are about to flood in. But overall, the demeanor between John Fetterman's people right now seems to be pretty cool, despite the fact that eyes around the country will be glued to their television screens tonight to see the outcome of this race, the United States Senate race here in Pennsylvania between Republican Mehmet Oz and Democrat John Fetterman has garnered national attention. Right now, we're on the stage here with the risers. There's about 25 media outlets here from around Pennsylvania and the country. Right now, that's because the winner of this election may swing the entire majority of the Senate race for their party. Currently, polls show that this race is neck and neck, and we expect it to be that way throughout the night. Now, Fetterman is no stranger to tight elections. He won his very first election as mayor of Braddock by just 1 vote. So he's no stranger to that. And if that election is anything like tonight, we could be in for a very long night, or possibly even longer. Reporting in Pittsburgh, Chris Keating, Newswatch 16.
All right, Chris, thanks so much for that. Fetterman has said he wants to be that 51st vote in Washington. I don't think we'll know tonight, but we'll see if it happens.
And there's a lot of other elements around the country that have to fall into place for that to happen as well. All right, Chris Keating's with the Fetterman campaign. Chelsea Strube is with the Dr. Oz campaign at the Newtown Athletic Club in Bucks County. Good evening, Chelsea.
Good evening, Scott. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm at the Newtown Athletic Club, as you said, outside in Bucks County, outside of Philadelphia. And right now there is more media here than there is supporters. The doors have just opened, and our camera is one of about 35 news cameras as the eyes of the world are on this Pennsylvania Senate race. I was talking to one news crew from France earlier, but let's get to Dr. Mehmet Oz. This is Mehmet Oz voting with his wife Lisa in Montgomery County earlier today. Now, despite criticism Oz faces for his recent move to Pennsylvania from New Jersey, the Republican in this race argues that his wife is from Montgomery County, his children, his grandchildren live here in Pennsylvania, so he feels like he has a good grasp on Pennsylvanians and the issues they're facing today. One of his last campaign stops was up in our area in Hazleton yesterday. He talked about his desire to work on the economy and inflation, but urged people to head out and vote. He also talked about his desire to bring balance to Washington in an attempt to appeal to independent and moderate voters. And that seems to be like his recent push is to bring balance to Washington. And as you guys were talking about earlier, he has really hit hard on the economy, inflation, and crime, and the current state of those things in our country as a reason for people to choose him at the polls. And he's hoping that people see that the prices of gas, the prices of groceries are what drive them to the polls and what choose him over his Democratic opponent, John Fetterman. But as you guys said, we likely will not know the result of that tonight, but the supporters here for the Oz campaign are in good spirits. They're happy to be here, so we'll continue to check in with you guys throughout the night, just how it seems to play out here. Chelsea Strube, Newswatch 16, reporting live in Bucks County tonight.
Good spirits on both ends of the state in that race. Chelsea, thank you very much.
Right now, we're going to check in with John Meyer over by our big board to break down what this all looks like, because we know this is neck and neck. A lot of people are going to be watching this one.
There is so much to watch tonight, and this is going to be our tool to really help break down what is playing out. This is our election center computer, and we're going to be able to watch each race. So we've got the governor's race, we've got the Senate race. We're going to be able to start to see this map fill in with different colors. In fact, Allegheny County is already reporting numbers. I am guessing their mail-in votes are already coming in, and we are seeing right now already John Fetterman 84% to 14% over Oz in his home county of Allegheny. So already we are starting to see some results. So this is what we could see since counties were counting mail-in ballots during the day today, that we're going to start to see some of these results come in relatively early, even though the polls just closed. Oh, and Philadelphia just popped in too. No surprise, Philadelphia is already reporting numbers though, 91 to 6 for Oz. So this is really early. We are really early in this whole process. Philadelphia, Shapiro having a big lead over Mastriano. Obviously, it's early in that. Same thing in Allegheny County. This is mail-in votes that are likely being reported right now. Mail-ins break predominantly for Democrats. 70% of all the mail-in ballots came from Democrats. So we're going to take a look at how we're going to be able to compare this too. So this is the 2 years ago, the 2020 election results. So we're going to be able to look tonight to see how counties are doing compared to 2 years ago. Now, of course, in Pennsylvania, there's a lot of things we keep an eye on. There's what we consider the Pennsylvania T. So that is the rural parts of Pennsylvania in here. That is where Republicans like to run up their votes. Then you've got Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Democrats run up their votes in there. So the keys to all of this become the collar counties, as they call the Philadelphia suburbs, northeastern Pennsylvania, and some of the suburbs around the Pittsburgh area. So we're going to watch all of this very closely as we go through to the night tonight. And of course, all this matters because the balance of power is up for grabs. I've got to just go over here, hit that. The balance of power is up for grabs. The Senate in the United States right now is 50-50. So that is what makes this race so key. The House is divided by only 5 seats right now. That is why this is so close and so important. And guys, we have a lot to follow, and we're already seeing some results. So we're going to check that out as we go through the night.
Looking at my computer, I see no results. You have results. I have none.
This is all fueled by the Associated Press. That's helping us get all our numbers tonight. So obviously they're starting to feed the system already.
And something
keep an eye on
interesting he said about those mail-in ballots. We know Pennsylvania had 1.4 million mail-in ballot requests. At least 900,000 of those were turned in. Of course, the deadline to get them in was by 8 o'clock today, but I think that could make a difference. We know Democrats tend to request more of the mail-in ballots, so we're watching that for sure.
So many troubles with the mail-in ballots, too. I wonder how many of those votes are now not going to be counted, and the courts are back and forth with the governor over whether these votes need to be set aside or counted right from the get-go.
We'll see.
The system.
Right, it's the process, signing the envelope, the secrecy envelope, don't forgetting those if they're not naked ballots. So you're right, a number of those. And we were saying earlier, I think in both Philadelphia and in Allegheny County, they published lists over the weekend of the people who had not properly submitted their mail-in ballots. Come back and fix it because something here is wrong.
We are also covering, of course, the race for governor of Pennsylvania. Attorney General Josh Shapiro is the Democratic nominee. Our Stacey Lang is with the Shapiro campaign our Stacey Lang will be with them, the Shapiro campaign, and we're going with our reporter Alyssa Kratz from our sister station in the Mid-State. She's with Doug Mastriano, the Republican state senator. Let's talk to the Senate campaign. It's an old-fashioned East-West Pennsylvania thing here, and we used to see this in the past. We always say, well, Western Pennsylvania votes for Western Pennsylvania. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
I'm not so sure that that's the case anymore. We've seen Josh Shapiro have a steady lead throughout this campaign. Doug Mastriano just has run a very grassroots type of campaign, has not raised money. Typically, the first sign of a good candidate is fundraising. You have to get on the phone and you're dialing for dollars. You need people to really buy into the campaign and buy into the message and what you're going to do and your agenda when you get there. Clearly, he didn't sell that. And that's an early warning sign for the Republicans that you may not have selected the right candidate here. We just have not seen the advertisements that you would expect. You just sometimes, you go in a bad direction. And I think maybe the Republicans here just didn't end up lining up the right people for this post, because Josh Shapiro at this point has been sailing throughout this campaign. I think that John is right with respect to some of his comments on this being tighter, certainly of a race, because it is a Republican versus a Democrat, and you have the conservative T, and that's going to matter.
And it's a Republican year.
And it's a Republican year, right? I mean, you have Joe Biden is pulling down the Democrats. This is a midterm election. Typically, Republicans will do better in midterm elections, but Pennsylvania, as Lisa said, it's a purple state. We can go both ways here. But Josh Shapiro has just run a better campaign. And I think the polling numbers throughout this race just reflect that.
Certainly discussing Mastriano's campaign strategy is a topic tonight, but let's go to Stacey Lang. She's with the Shapiro campaign at the Greater Philly Expo Center in Montgomery County. Good evening, Stacey.
Good evening, Scott, Corey, and Lisa. Nice to hear your voices. We are in Montgomery County, which is Josh Shapiro's home county, also where he served as a county commissioner before moving to Harrisburg for the Attorney General's job. It's really just started to feel like a party atmosphere here at the Expo Center. They just turned the music on a little while ago, opened the doors around 8 o'clock, and supporters have started to pour in. What you see behind us is where they anticipate Josh Shapiro to speak later on this evening, though we don't know when that is going to be. We did see his running mate Austin Davis earlier this afternoon. He came by around 3 o'clock. Don't know if he's still here, but we thought it was interesting that he had showed up earlier today. Shapiro and Davis looking to do something that hasn't been done here in the Commonwealth since 1959. That is following another Democrat into the governor's office. Historically here in PA, the governor's office has flipped red after a Democrat has served. I would say that the attitude here with the campaign staffers we've been dealing with all afternoon and evening has been upbeat and optimistic. As I'm sure you've mentioned, Shapiro has led in the polls throughout this entire election season over his Republican opponent Doug Mastriano. And the folks here are just hoping that translates into a victory tonight, into an early night tonight, which is not going to be the reality for a lot of the other candidates across the country. So we'll be here bringing you updates as we have them. For now, Stacey Lang, Newswatch 16, reporting live in Montgomery County.
All right, Stacey, thanks so much for that. Of course, Shapiro, the Attorney General since 2017, so he's known across Pennsylvania, but we'll see what happens tonight once we get all those results in.
You've mentioned Mastriano not having any money. You would think the solution to a candidate being underfunded would be to really get out there and try to get as much free media, as they call it in the business. Mastriano did exactly the opposite.
Yeah, it's a very unconventional campaign. So we'll see if just the fact that the Republicans have momentum helps him. I think it will help him, but will it get him over the finish line? I'm not so sure.
8:15 in the evening. The results are coming in from across Pennsylvania. We're going to take our first break here on WNEP2. Stay with us. You will find out the winners, and you're going to find them out first here on The Deuce.
Is a new kind of auto protection plan that gives you more. You gotta have a protection plan, or you'll be paying the huge costs of auto repair on your own. Some plans charge you $150 a month, but for less than $1 a day, Everything Brakes can protect you from crippling auto repair bills that you can't afford. Call the number on your screen now for a no-obligation quote.
I like Everything Brakes because they have lots of different plans. It's really affordable, and they have really good customer service.
Everything Brakes also includes 24-hour roadside assistance, free towing, and free rental cars. With our loyalty program, you can earn rewards like free oil changes and brake pads. Everything Brakes covers more than cars, so act now and coverage for your smartphone will be included free. That's auto and phone protection for one low price. It's only a matter of time until something breaks, so don't wait. Call now to join the millions of satisfied customers and start saving thousands on your repair bills.
Call 800-894-0886 or visit everythingbrakes.com.
Thanks for sending your pictures to the PhotoLink Library at WNEP.com.
Welcome back to WNEP2 exclusive live election night coverage. Scott Shaffer, Lisa Washington, and Corey O'Brien bringing you all the results. John Meyer at the big board, and big night ahead, just getting started.
Before we went to break, we were talking about Doug Mastriano, the Republican candidate for governor. Alyssa Kratz from our sister station in Harrisburg is with the Mastriano camp, and they're at the Penn Harris Hotel that's in Camp Hill in Cumberland County. Alyssa, what's it like so far?
Good evening, Scott and Lisa. Yeah, festivities here at the Penn Harris Hotel well underway now, and it is a very optimistic feel in the room. The music is going, lights are on, and everyone seems to be in pretty good spirits. Now, Mastriano, a former Army colonel, as we know, has run what many would say is an unorthodox campaign, choosing not to run many television ads and not speak to traditional media throughout the campaign. Even with the endorsement of former President Donald Trump, he's been polling behind his Democratic opponent, Josh Shapiro, for much of the general election campaign, and the margin between the two candidates has only widened over these last few weeks. But again, still a sense of confidence in the room here. Many Mastriano supporters saying that they are really hoping for a victory here tonight. Of course, we'll see what happens once the numbers start rolling in a little bit later. For now, live in Cumberland County, Alyssa Kratz, Newswatch 16.
Alyssa, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Final thoughts on Mastriano?
Listen, the political term for it's lazy. I mean, I just don't have another word for it. I just think he had a golden opportunity with respect to what he needed to do this time around, but he needed to raise money. He needed to be on television. He needed to get that message out. And you can't just rely on social media and other things that do that for you. You have to be on the phone from 8 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 to 7 days a week. in order to raise that money to run those ads to ensure that the public understands why you're running and what you're going to do as their governor. And he just didn't do it.
And you get branded by the other side.
Correct.
Yeah, the other side controls the dialogue.
The narrative.
And then you think about what Corey said, the free media, the opportunities to do those interviews with the local news stations across the Commonwealth, and he just did not do that. Again, that's not dollars, that is just using the opportunity, the time to get your message out to potential voters.
I don't know if it's lazy or it's just that was his conscious strategy. He wanted to be the guy who distrusted the media to the point that he wouldn't even speak to them. And so, for better or worse, that's the campaign that he brings to the table tonight.
Not a winning strategy, in my mind. We'll see at the end of the night.
Big state too, boy. I mean, you can get to the rural counties, and John's telling us that Mastriano campaigned tirelessly in the rural counties. Is there enough votes there to win?
We shall see.
We'll see.
We'll find out tonight. All right, you want to talk some Congress? I know that's a couple of big races coming up here. We've neglected it for 20 minutes, and that's where a lot of eyes are going to be tonight, really across the eastern part of our viewing area. We have 4 congressional races, all contested tonight. The 2, as you get more towards central Pennsylvania, that's Glenn Thompson in, what do they call that district now? The 15th. And Dan Muser in the 9th. 2 Republican incumbents, both in pretty strong position for re-election.
Strong positions. When you think about it, I always think about it from teeing up Congress for a second. There have been 22 midterm elections that we have been recording data with respect to outcomes. In those since 1934, the president's party has lost 19 of the 22. There have been 3 exceptions. The first exception was FDR in 1934. Bill Clinton, 1998, he had a 65% approval rating. And George Bush in 2002, he had a 67% approval rating. This is day 658 in the Biden presidency. Joe Biden's approval rating is 41.4%. It's the lowest presidential approval rating since polling began in 1945 with Harry Truman. Joe Biden, 41.4%. Trump, 42.2%, and Reagan, 43%. Those are the lowest 3 in a midterm election. All of those candidates lost significantly with respect to seats. I would predict that this will be a Republican wave, like there was a blue wave where the Democrats took 40 seats when Donald Trump was president of the United States. I think you're going to see the Republicans and a red wave tonight that is going to be big. The question is it really going to happen in Pennsylvania?
I was going to say, I think Pennsylvania is going to be the exception to that. I do think Republicans will pick up some seats, but when we talk about the 8th district here, the 9th district, I don't think that both of those will go Republican.
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
I think 8 and 9 are solid Democratic districts.
Now
we talk about 7.
8 is Democrat, 9 is Dan Muser.
Right. 9 is Muser, right.
Yes.
The Republican district. Those, I think, are locked seats. I think the 7th now, I'd talk to you a little bit about the 7th, because think about it. Susan Wild ran in 2018. This was part of the blue wave. It was a special election. She won 54-44 or so 54-44. Then she was reelected in 2020 by a much slimmer margin, beating Lisa Scheller 52-48. I'm predicting a Republican pickup there in the 7th Congressional District. And here's why I say it. The latest Muhlenberg College poll shows that 44% of individuals in that district identify themselves as Democrat. 44% Republican. The remaining 10% independents. Joe Biden, again, has got the lowest approval rating of any president. Number 1 issue is the economy. That issue plays very well, not only with Republicans, but independents, and independents appear to be leaning Republican this year around. That's why I think that Lisa Scheller is in a strong position. She has been gaining momentum. They're now at a dead heat statistical tie. I think at the end of the night, we may not know that race tonight, but I think Lisa Scheller is going to pull that out. That'll be an upset in my mind, and I think that's going to move the needle for the Republicans in Pennsylvania. Might be the only pickup in Pennsylvania for Republicans.
Just to put some clarification on that, so people know, we're saying the 7th district, but this is Lehigh, Northampton, and Carbon counties, and part of Monroe County. So we're talking about the Pocono area there for the 7th district. And Susan Wild running for her 3rd term. She was unopposed in the primary. So this is definitely going to be one to watch, especially if it turns red.
Especially if it turns red. And it's close. It's a statistical dead heat right now in the polls.
Right. It's not a seat we've talked a lot about in the past because it did not touch our viewing area. It was Lehigh Valley based. Now it has come up to Carbon County. That is, I think, to the benefit of the Republican challenger having Carbon County.
For sure.
All right, and so if you are just joining us, you are watching Your Voice, Your Vote 2022 election coverage here on WNEP, and we appreciate all those viewers coming in with us. Going to be what we know, it's going to be a long night.
That indeed. We do have some numbers coming in, real early numbers from like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, which obviously always favor the Democratic candidates, so nothing really to take with any serious nature at this point. But we are seeing numbers coming in early. We know that some of the mail-in ballots are being counted earlier this time around. So we're cautiously optimistic that we're going to have a pretty good idea what's going on tonight.
For sure. And of course, we have John Meyer with us. He's sitting by there, a big board with a look at the numbers there. Have any more numbers come in, John? Again, it's still very early.
Yeah, it's early, but we are starting to see some colors pop up on our map. And that is what we expect to happen as counties start to report those mail-in ballots. And that is happening across Pennsylvania. Now, what you have to remember is in Pennsylvania, Democrats by far vote more by mail than Republicans do. 70% of all ballots for mail-in are Democrats. So right now, the mail-in ballots being reported, Fetterman is leading Oz 83% to 15%. Again, this is mail-in. This is very early. It is interesting, though, as we see these mail-in votes start to come in, some of the more Republican counties are turning in red. Schuylkill County has Oz up. That is likely mail-in votes. Also, some of the other counties we're seeing here, but almost all the early votes that we're seeing are from Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, two places Democrats always try to run up their vote totals to try to offset rural Pennsylvania. So this is way too early. Same thing in the governor's race. Just one thing I want to point out. You can see in the mail-in that Mastriano and Shapiro, Mastriano running behind Oz by about 4% on the mail-in votes. And so Shapiro running about 4% above Fetterman on the mail-in ballots. Still early, but that is something to watch because we're going to be seeing how the two of them and those two races, the difference between them, because there has been some theories that Oz has been doing well, that maybe Oz will carry Mastriano to a better showing because we don't often see a split result here in Pennsylvania. Still no results, though, in the congressional districts like the 7th or the 8th. We're still waiting on that. So still a lot more to come, guys. But we're keeping an eye on it, and nice to see some results start filtering in here early.
Yeah, very exciting.
Even before 8:30 there. We haven't talked about the 8th Congressional District a lot. This was a rematch because we're talking about Cartwright and Bognet. Thoughts on that?
Well, I thought from a television perspective that Bognet had a much better advertising campaign this time around than he did 2 years ago.
Okay.
I thought his commercials were effective. I thought Cartwright's commercials early on were lackluster, if I have a word. I thought they got a little bit better as the election went on. Nitpicking with Bognet, the commercial with the football team, the kid who he said had really good hands. If he had good hands, he wouldn't be wearing number 66. Football fans, you understand what I'm saying.
You said that many times.
That bothered me the whole fall. I don't want to take away from the fact that it was a good ad. He had a good advertising campaign. He just seemed like a more solid, confident candidate the second time around.
And one thing that Bognet did say in those is that, he wants to take Pennsylvania in a new direction. Cartwright running for his 7th term now. So, this is, do you bring in someone new or do you continue on, with the person who's been in office for quite some time? Again, we know these districts have been redrawn, but Cartwright been in Congress since 2013.
I have him running for his 6th term.
Yes, for a 6th term. You are correct.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this race, I think Bognet has done an excellent job on television. He's really tried to change his outlook, just the way people view him. I think he's done a nice job with that. And let's remember, all the polling data has had this within the margin of error. So we're not talking about some guaranteed win for the Democrats here. I mean, right now, as we're sitting here today, Cartwright's at 48%, Bognet's at 45%. So we're not talking about some runaway race. This can go either way. And from a Republican standpoint, to even have a chance at someone who has been, fairly prominent in Congress from Pennsylvania, I would say, is Matt Cartwright. For them to have a shot here, I mean, it's a big deal. So this race is not a guarantee. Well, I think we think Cartwright has the upper hand. He's been in Congress longer. From a fundraising standpoint, he has been able to really kind of build a base. Bognet, look out. The red wave could come here. I mean, I think Matt Cartwright would tell you.
We're live on the deuce. Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. Of course, we're talking about the 8th district there. This is Lackawanna Pike and Wayne County, parts of Monroe, as well as Luzerne County there. Again, a newly redrawn district. So we will see how that plays out tonight.
Close to what it was. Of all the districts that have been redrawn, this one seems to be almost exactly what it was. The theory being that in this race that Cartwright can do well in Lackawanna, and then Bognet has to make up for that, and in the metropolitan areas of Luzerne, and Bognet has to make up for that pretty much everywhere else.
It's something to look at. I'm not, I'm talking myself out of just an easy Cartwright win here, which is what I came in thinking about. But, this is a Republican year. There's no doubt about that. And I think one of the ads that maybe was the best ad for Bognet was, that Matt Cartwright has voted 100% of the time with Nancy Pelosi. That doesn't play well in Pennsylvania. I don't think that plays well in northeastern Pennsylvania. 100% voting record with Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. I don't think people in northeastern Pennsylvania like that very much.
All right.
We shall see. All right, well, it seems that we're getting some results from the governor's race in, but I think we're going to check in with our Nikki Kreis now. Oh, actually, we're going to look at those results first, and this looks about 7% reporting, and there we see Shapiro with, a resoundingly 250,000 to 33,000 for Mastriano. But again, this is very, very, very early.
Yeah, this is similar to the numbers John showed us on the big board. We think there's a lot of write-in, pardon me, I'm always going to make that mistake for the rest of my life. A lot of mail-in ballots and a lot of ballots from Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
That's right. And now I think we're going to check in with our Nikki Kreis, and she is with the Bognet campaign. No, not yet. Okay, we will get to Nikki throughout the night. I do promise you that. But again, we were looking at those results from the governor's race. We think that many of those may have been those mail-in ballots.
Cartwright is with the Democrats tonight at the Waldorf Social Club in Scranton, and Jim Bognet is at the Pines in Hazleton. That's where Nikki is. Our Courtney Harrison is with the Democrats at the Waldorf in Scranton. We're going to be checking in with them throughout the night as well. Want to get down into the smaller races? There's certainly been a lot of attention. We had, about 11 incumbent state representatives stepping down, not running for re-election for whatever reason this time around. A lot of open seats, a lot of change because of the reapportionment and the redistricting of the local seats. What's a good one to look at tonight?
Well, I think there's a lot of good races. I just always like looking at that Marty Flynn. I think always looking at Marty Flynn in a race is always good in an election year. I think he's always somebody to kind of note. So I always kind of look at that Marty Flynn race and just see where Democrats are, because he always seems to have a core set of Democrats. It'll be interesting to see whether the Republicans gain anything there that may spill over in other districts.
Tom Bassett is a music teacher, and he won a write-in campaign to be the Republican nominee to run against Marty Flynn. Flynn's now a state senator. Of course, he's running for his first full term after winning the special election. Got appointed, won the special election, and yes, so he's in office for an abbreviated term now, looking for a full 4 years.
And I think he'll have a commanding lead and a big victory tonight. But it'll just be interesting to see if Republicans have just anything there that might help them in some of those House races that are local.
See how that follows with the governor's race.
You got it.
All right, now I think that our Nikki Kreis is ready. We're going to check in with her again. She is with the Bognet campaign. Nikki.
All right, 2 years ago, Jim Bognet lost to Matt Cartwright by about 12,000 votes, and he's pretty confident that won't be the case this year. Some of Bognet's supporters are gathered here at the Pines Eatery in Hazleton, waiting for those election results. As we said, the 8th district includes parts of Lackawanna, Luzerne, Monroe, Pike, and Wayne counties. We have discussed today's paper problems in Luzerne County, so everyone here is unsure as to when we will see those election results. Jim Bognet is a Hazleton native with a law degree from UCLA. He is a small business owner and a conservative policy advisor. He worked in the Trump administration handling trade issues, among other things. His supporters tell us they are feeling pretty confident about the high voter turnout today, and they are cautiously optimistic. And we will keep you updated from the Pines Eatery here in Hazleton. Nikki Kreis, Newswatch 16, live in Luzerne County.
All right, Nikki, look forward to your reports throughout the night. Is that race we're going to know the outcome of tonight, do you think, Corey?
Oh, that's a good one, possibly.
Especially with the situation in Luzerne County, because Luzerne County is a big part of the 8th
Well, that's the issue.
district.
I just don't know if they have paper. So if they end up having paper, maybe we'll know. If there's no paper, then maybe not. I really hope we know the outcome of that race.
Right.
I'm not sure how many of the precincts the paper was an issue. I know that we've reported at least 2 precincts where paper was an issue.
Some in Dorrance and some in Harvey's Lake.
Harvey's Lake, right. Right, so I just don't know how much of that is going to matter there. I hope to know tonight. I would hope that we would know tonight, but it's probably going to be pretty close. I mean, again, they're within the margin of error. Cartwright has always been up. Do the polls reflect properly independent votes? Do they reflect properly Republican votes? Some years Democrats feel to be undercounted. Sometimes Republicans feel undercounted. You know, where are we with respect to polls these days? You know, there's a lot in flux with respect to that, so it's a toss-up.
And there's always that margin of error, but I do think that we will know the results of this one tonight. I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic that we will. Again, the polls are closed every place except for Luzerne County. They will be open until 10 o'clock because of that paper issue. Who would have thought paper?
We're going to take a quick break here on The Deuce. Stay with us on WNEP2. We expect to start knowing a lot more about who's winning and who's losing in the next 25 to 30 minutes. You don't want to go away.
Everyday wins make your day that much better. So play FanDuel Casino's reward machine for your free chance to win up to $2,000 in casino bonus every day, only on FanDuel Casino.
Attention Zantac users. The FDA requested manufacturers to pull Zantac off the market, noting exposure to unacceptable levels of a cancer-causing agent. If you or a loved one was diagnosed with cancer after regular use of Zantac, you might be entitled to financial compensation. If you have any of these cancers, time is critical. Call now for a free consultation. If you don't win, you pay nothing.
Call 800-829-5883.
What should we do?
I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need.
See your pet's photo in the Pet Slideshow at WNEP.com. See more of the big games, more of the teams that matter most to you. See more of the fun of Friday Night Football with Ron Snyder and Landon Stoller. The Super 16 Sports Final, Friday nights at 11 on Newswatch 16.
Everyday wins make your day that much better. So play FanDuel Casino's reward machine for your free chance to win up to $2,000 in casino bonus every day, only on FanDuel Casino.
This is Your Voice, Your Vote 2022 Election Day coverage here on WNEP2. Thanks so much for joining us. We're happy to bring you these results as we get them tonight. We don't think we'll get all of them tonight, but we will share them with you as we do get them. Going to be a long night.
They're starting to trickle in. Let's take a look at the 7th Congressional District, the seat that's based in the Lehigh Valley, but also includes parts of the Poconos now under reapportionment. Very early returns coming in here, and Susan Wild has the early lead by about 14,000 votes or so. But again, we are talking about very early returns. Susan Wild is hosting a campaign rally tonight, an election night rally at the Wind Creek Casino in Bethlehem. Newswatch 16's Amanda Eustace is covering the 7th District Congressional race for us, and she joins us live from the Christmas City. Good evening, Amanda.
Good evening, Scott and Lisa. That's right. There is much, I should say, energy and excitement here at Wind Creek Casino for incumbent Susan Wild's watch party. Now, let's just take.
And that was fun while it lasted. All right, Amanda Eustace is with the Wild and Scheller campaigns. They're both pretty close together in Bethlehem tonight, so we're going to be covering that as it is moving along fluidly. We saw the early numbers favoring Wild. That's not really a surprise.
Right, she is the incumbent, again, running for her third term, but we never know what could happen. As you said, this could be that red wave, and we'll see if this is one of those seats where that happens.
I think both parties on the national level are looking at this race and following it closely tonight. They have it on the televisions in Washington, D.C. as they're tracking races.
Well, a lot of money being spent. All right, let's look at our early results from the Senate race across Pennsylvania. Talk about a race that all of America is watching. Just 1% reporting right now, and you see the early numbers still favoring the Lieutenant Governor, John Fetterman, the Democratic nominee over Dr. Mehmet Oz. the Republican, but again, very early numbers, and this race is one that we expect to be just so tight as the evening marches on.
I think this is going to be the most watched race from Pennsylvania, and talk about a lot of money being spent. I mean, these ads seem to be non-stop there. We know there were outside dollars coming in from these PACs supporting both of these campaigns. So this is one I think a lot of people are going to watch. Something we haven't talked about, they had that one and only debate with the Fetterman and Oz, and of course many people watched that. Many, of course, wanting to see Fetterman. You know, is he fit for this position? He had that stroke a couple of days before the primary back in May. There was some talk about if he would be prepared and ready to represent the people of Pennsylvania and Washington. I think this, again, this is the one that people are going to be watching around the country.
And the debate was a stark contrast between, you know, a man who wasn't at the top of his game by any measure against a man who makes a living out of being on TV.
Correct.
I've talked to a lot of Democrats with respect to this race, and there's two types of Democrats. There are Democrats that say, I'm voting for Fetterman no matter what. Whether he can communicate well or not, I'm voting for him because he's going to vote the way in the United States Senate that I'm looking for him to vote. There are other Democrats who have said, I just can't bring myself to vote for somebody who I don't think can communicate and articulate the message well. So it's interesting that even Democrats are torn on this issue. Democrats who are just strong, ardent Democrats feel he's going to vote the way I want him to vote. Sure. I think people feel the same way on the Oz side. There's a lot of folks out there on the Republican side who don't think Oz is that great and that great of a candidate, but they believe he's going to vote their way, so they're supporting him. So I think it's interesting, and where the independents go here is really going to matter, because I think the Democrats are going to be split. I think you're going to have Democrats voting for Oz and Fetterman. I think you're going to have Republicans voting for Fetterman and Oz as well. Where do the independent votes go? We know that there are 8.9 million voters in Pennsylvania. We know 45% are Dem. 40% are Republican. We know 15% is independent. They're going to dictate the outcome of this race, those independents. What issue do you care most about? What issue do you care most about? Think about in terms of that, right? When you look at the top issues, the economy and inflation, Republicans 92% to 65%. Democracy. Our democracy being up for grabs, right? Our democratic system of government, Democrats, 80 to 70, right? Education, energy policy, tied. Violent crime goes to Republicans. If you're thinking about gun policy, elections and voting, you're voting Democrat, right? So what's the issue that you care most about? If it's the economy and inflation, which I think leads all aspects, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, that overwhelmingly goes to Republicans. If you're abortion, you're overwhelmingly voting with Democrats. Supreme Court nominees, overwhelmingly voting for Democrats. What's the top issue? That's going to be interesting when we start to see how people voted here. What was their top issue going in? That's going to dictate it. Remember what James Carville said a long time ago, it's the economy, stupid. That's what he said.
I just said that to someone this week, and that's what a lot of people think about. But you're right. I mean, this really could be the midterms where the independents decide. It really could be. As an independent, I got more mailers in this election than I think I ever did, and more stuff in the mail. Because usually, as an independent, you just don't get that volume of the mailing. But this cycle, I really did.
And you're hitting issues, right? So they're sending you pieces on issues. It's not just candidates. They're trying to figure out the issue, right? They're trying to put in your mind the issue because they know where you're going to vote. If your economy and inflation, you're probably voting for the Republican. But if you think our democracy is at risk, you're voting for the Democrat, right? They're putting issues in front of you, trying to get you to pick one of those and pick their side. Right.
Well, let's put this race on the back burner for just 1 second. Take a look at the latest numbers in the race for governor. Shapiro and Mastriano and some other lesser party candidates. Don't mean to say lesser. That's a poor choice of words.
The other parties.
That's a better way of putting it, yes. But again, Shapiro still holding on to that lead. We're still very early here in the evening, but the early lead goes to the Democrat. Not unusual in Pennsylvania that the early lead would go to the Democrat. It used to be that the Philly and Pittsburgh numbers would come in first. Now it's the mail-in ballots come in first. Either way, the Democrats always get the early leg up. The Republicans spend the rest of the night catching up, and well, oftentimes they do.
And right now we are going to check back in with our Stacey Lang, who is with the Shapiro campaign there in Montgomery County. She is at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center there. Stacey, now we can see some of the supporters who've come in. We couldn't see them earlier. You told us they were there, but we didn't see them.
party going on. When we checked in with you at 8 o'clock, I said the party was just starting to ramp up. It really certainly has that atmosphere now. We're kind of pointed towards all of the media cameras. There's about 24 of us here. We're pointed towards the stage, but we shifted things over so you can see the party. There's a few hundred people there. On the other side of this black curtain, there are a couple food trucks and also the bus that Josh Shapiro rode around the state in during this election season. And that, I keep saying that the party atmosphere has really picked up, and that's because of those early numbers. I know John pointed out earlier that those early numbers are skewing Democrat because they're mostly mail-in votes, showing that huge lead between Shapiro and his opponent, Republican Doug Mastriano. But those numbers were very encouraging. There were lots of cheers coming from the crowd here. We haven't heard anything yet from the campaign. We were told we'd get a warning as the numbers start to pick up when we might hear from him. We have not gotten that warning yet. So we're standing by while the folks behind us are celebrating what they hope will be a victory tonight. For now, Stacey Lang, Newswatch 16, reporting live in Montgomery County.
All right, Stacey, thanks very much.
And of course, we will see if Josh Shapiro is able to become the next governor of Pennsylvania, another Democrat following Tom Wolf. And that just doesn't happen that often in Pennsylvania.
Well, it hasn't happened since they went to allowing governors to run for re-election, when they allowed governors to run for a second term, because it used to be back in the 60s you could only run for one. Now Milton Schaap was the first who was able to run for re-election, and every governor who ran for re-election won re-election up until Tom Corbett in 14. Tom Wolf beat him in 14 and 18, but never has it gone 3 straight election cycles with the same party. It's always been 2, 2, 2, then 1 and 2, but yeah. So this will be historic if Shapiro does win tonight.
All right. Well, let's check in with John. I think you have some more numbers to share with us.
Yeah, our map of Pennsylvania keeps filling in with more counties that are reporting their results, and you're starting to see the reds and the blues showing up on the map. I want to point out, like these numbers that we're seeing, you're seeing that Shapiro lead at 81% to 17% lead. That is just because this is almost completely mail-in ballots. And a reminder that in Pennsylvania, it's unique how we've started to vote here. Democrats predominantly make up the mail-in vote. More than 70% of the votes come in from Dems. What is interesting, though, when we look at this mapping, you see quite a bit of red. I want to point out in 2020, Joe Biden won almost every county in the mail-in votes. So you are seeing some red checkered in here from the mail-in ballots. But I want to show you how things can be deceiving. Like, look at Susquehanna County. It is showing Shapiro with the lead over Mastriano. We can almost guarantee, and same thing with the Senate, Fetterman leading over Oz. We can almost guarantee Susquehanna is going to be a red county by the end of the night. So what is going to play out over the next couple hours is that the election day vote is really going to start to fill in. Republicans predominantly vote on election day, especially in what's called Pennsylvania's T, the rural area where there's a lot of Republican votes to get. And we're already just seeing, I can just see the numbers for the Republicans start ticking up, ticking up, ticking up. An hour from now, this is going to look much different than it does right now. Even Lackawanna County reporting some early numbers right now showing Oz with a big lead over Fetterman. Lackawanna County is a very Democratic county. It's hard to believe those numbers are what we're going to be seeing come the end of the night out of Lackawanna County. So numbers this early, guys, can be very deceiving in Pennsylvania. This is the map of Trump versus Biden from 2 years ago. We will likely see a map very similar to this. A lot of red, some blue. These blue counties in Pennsylvania are enough to let a Democrat win, even when you see all this red. So that is what we're going to be sorting out as more numbers come in as we go through the night. This was the last governor's race. Tom Wolf won big. We'll see what happens as we go through the night tonight, guys.
All right, John, thanks very much. Let's talk with Chris Keating, Newswatch 16's Chris Keating with the Fetterman campaign in Pittsburgh tonight. Chris.
Hi guys, the energy here at Stage AE in Pittsburgh has stepped it up a notch since the last time I talked to you guys. A large number of Fetterman supporters have entered the building, and I was able to make my way down into the crowd to talk to a few people. They said there's a mixture of nerves and confidence here. They said they hope they did enough to swing that independent vote. Corey, like you've been saying all night long, that 15% of undecided voters, they're hoping they did enough to get those people to vote blue, and they hope they can swing this election through that, and that could likely be the outcome of this election. And now I also talked to some people in Fetterman's camp, their key phrase tonight is breathe and relax. They know this is going to be a long process. They talked about the mail-in ballots. They said they're going to come in slowly. They expect to see a red surge. I know John was just talking about it. I know we're seeing a lot of mail-in ballots come in early. They're expecting to see those red votes come in and maybe possibly take a lead, but they said stay with the process. The mail-in ballots will come in, and they're confident, and they think they can win this thing. Now, we haven't seen John Fetterman at all. I don't think we'll see him for quite some time, but people are filling this building in, and they feel confident, and I can't blame them. The energy in here is really good, so we'll see what happens the rest of the night, and I'll bring you any more coverage as I get it. Reporting live in Pittsburgh, Chris Keating, Newswatch 16.
All right, Chris, thanks so much from Pittsburgh's North Shore there. I think something interesting to watch with Fetterman. We keep talking about this T in Pennsylvania, you know, the top tier, of course, and then central Pennsylvania. We think of Fetterman as an east or western Pennsylvania, but he's from York. So how well will he do in that, you know, south central Pennsylvania? I wonder what those numbers are going to look like. Thoughts on that, Corey?
Wow, Lisa, that is a tough one, and you're throwing it to me.
We don't talk about the whole lot. I mean, you know, he's from York. That's where he started before he moved over, obviously, to western Pennsylvania.
It's really an important question. And you know what? I almost feel like this race is a national race on national issues, and that it transcends Pennsylvania. I have a feeling that people are really focused on this race with respect to the top issues. You know, whether it's economy, whether it's Supreme Court, whether it's abortion or gun policy, that people are voting more issue on the national level. So I have a feeling that even though he is from York, and it's an insightful comment, I think that York and the conservative T will stay strong for the Republican. And he's just going to have to pull as many of those votes as maybe he can. Maybe he can pull that off just based on that.
Right.
Because he does have a feel of that, right? Kind of like a rough, there's a feel to him that people like. And they like that feeling in the rural parts of the state. But I'm just not sure that they like his policies. And whether he's going to be a vote for Joe Biden or the Republicans. I mean, we know where Fetterman stands on that.
Right.
So I just don't know that at the end of the day, it's going to be enough for him to win their vote. But boy,
we'll see.
It's a thoughtful.
He does have family still in South Central PA. His parents are there. He has a couple of at least one brother in the Camp Hill, Mechanicsburg area with big family.
Yes.
So.
In the families for Trump,
Greg.
right?
Yes.
Was it the article?
The parents were Trump supporters.
The TV commercial, right?
He grew up in a Republican household. Yeah, there.
How you feeling?
Yeah.
There he is. Voting today in Braddock in his usual outfit, Lieutenant Governor.
6'8" he is. I mean, just, you know, definitely not a small guy there. His wife, Giselle, of course. You know, he's a tattoo guy, shorts guy. He's got 3 children. And it's going to be interesting. I think, you know, the stroke, you know, said something about, he says that's kind of like the campaign. Anybody who's ever been knocked down, you know, you build back, you come back, and that's what his campaign is all about. So again, we'll see. I think this is the one to watch, and I don't think we will have those results tonight.
We do have some early numbers in the 8th District Congressional race. Matt Cartwright trying to defend his seat in a rematch against Republican challenger Jim Bognet, the businessman from Hazleton, and the early numbers again favoring the Democrat in this race, as we have seen really across the board so far tonight. Cartwright with the early lead in the 8th, and this is a race again we will be watching very closely tonight. We have reporters at both headquarters. Bognet is in Hazleton, Cartwright is in Scranton, the sprawling 8th District, which runs from Wayne County all the way down into the Hazleton area and most of Monroe County as well.
Right, and again, these are very early numbers, as you said. I do think we'll know the outcome of this one tonight, but there may be some surprises.
Well, it's interesting in this one. What I always say in politics, only one day matters, and it's today. You want to peak today.
Right.
That's it. He has been 3 points down since the very beginning of polling in this race. He's literally been 3 points. If he peaks at the right time and peaks today, think about it, Hillary Clinton. How often was she down in that presidential race? Not at all.
No.
She was only down one day throughout the entire election.
Right.
She was up in the polls on every day except one day.
Well, she would make the argument. She would make the argument she was up that day too.
Right.
But,
She might.
Yes.
She might. But at the end of the day, there was one day that she didn't win, and she won the polls in every other day.
Right.
Is Jim Bognet in a similar position? 3 points, margin of error, been behind the whole time. But momentum at the end of the race, does he peak and pull this out and maybe make it a race that we don't find out the results tonight? I'm with you, Lisa. I think we find it out. I think Matt Cartwright is still in a strong position, but who's going to peak? Who peaks today?
I think this one comes down maybe to more of the person and maybe less of the issues. You know, I was a panelist on that one debate they did. I think this one is going to be more of the candidate and maybe the issues are second. And I could be wrong about that, but that's my guess.
Tip O'Neill said it best. All politics is local. All politics is local.
Right.
It's about the people. You may hate Congress, but you love your member of Congress.
See that over and over.
Yes.
We haven't talked a whole lot about the local state legislative races yet tonight, but we have some numbers. So let's take a look at that. In the 20th District for State Senate, you've heard of the fabulous Baker boys. Well, these are the fabulous Baker women. Lisa Baker is the incumbent state senator. She is running for a 5th term from the back mountain of Luzerne County. Jackie Baker is a first-time candidate, as far as I know, an educator from Susquehanna County. The 20th District is a rather oddly shaped district, always has been. It goes from the back mountain of Luzerne County, then kind of a big horseshoe, if you can imagine, up around Scranton to the north, and then even coming all the way over to like Wayne County. So Lisa Baker really has to drive through other senatorial districts to get from one end of hers to the other. That's not important. What is important is that she is up in the early voting, and she has always been a strong vote getter. Even a candidate with the same name is going to have a difficult time
That's tough when it's the same last name. And something interesting, I thought, just to see the campaigns in some of these state races. I was surprised to see as much political advertising, you know, traditional, like through television, to see those ads. So it shows that, you know, people are really committed to these races.
I have one piece of knowledge with respect to, just from an analysis standpoint on the state races. Incumbents win. State races, incumbents win. They're entrenched. I think the incumbents are in a great position here. I'd put Kyle Donahue in the 113th. I think he is a strong candidate in the 113th. Tom Welby not running, obviously. But incumbents, I think that's going to be the status quo in terms of state House and Senate seats. That's just the way I'm feeling about that whole state level.
Is this because I like my person who's representing me, or is this?
This is Tip O'Neill. This is back to Tip O'Neill. All politics is local. I like the person. I don't like the institution, but I like the person.
We're going to break in onto WNEP with our election coverage here. And welcome to all of you who are joining us on WNEP. Scott Shaffer, Lisa Washington, Corey O'Brien, John Meyer on the big board. We are live on WNEP 2 until 10 o'clock tonight. As the results come in, we are seeing some early results so far in some of the big races across Pennsylvania.
Very early numbers. We, of course, are talking about the Pennsylvania Senate and the House races there, but we know that the eyes of Pennsylvania and the nation going to be on those big races. Of course, the big Senate race between Fetterman and Oz, the governor's race as well. We haven't talked much about the lieutenant governor's race. We'll get to that, I'm sure, momentarily. But again, these early numbers we know are coming from the mail-in ballots, and we expect to get results from some of the voting today a little later on tonight.
Again, the numbers, the early numbers that are coming in are favoring the Democrats. We believe that's mostly mail-in ballots and from some of the bigger urban areas in Pennsylvania. Not unusual for Democrats to get out to an early lead in any kind of statewide race around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but it always tightens, and this tonight is going to be no different.
All right, and we're going to check in with John because I know you have some numbers. We're talking about that Senate race between Fetterman and Oz. Tell us what you're seeing. Yeah, so we keep an eye on the county-by-county breakdown here throughout Pennsylvania and the results that are coming in. Predominantly so far, it has been almost all mail-in votes. And you can see in the race, Fetterman is leading Dr. Oz 74% to 23%, a big lead there. And that is because those mail-in votes in Pennsylvania almost always trend toward the Democrats, and big time. 70-some% often tend to come from Democrats or Democratic-leaning independents. But you are starting to see some of the counties that are filling in red, and that is a good point, because back in 2020, a lot of the mail-in vote in almost the entire state came for Biden. So the fact that we're seeing so much red fill in from the mail-in vote is showing that maybe Republicans are doing just a little bit better in the mail-in in some of the rural counties. But this is going to change significantly in the Senate race as the numbers come in. Just for example, Lackawanna County is showing Dr. Oz in the lead. Lackawanna County is a very Democratic county. It's more than likely Fetterman is going to win that when we're done. Governor's race, the same thing. Josh Shapiro, 79% to 19%. What we are watching is how closely those two races are together. Shapiro was 79.
Fetterman was 74, so Shapiro right now running about 5% above where Fetterman is. So we'll keep an eye on all this. It's starting to change. We're starting to see those election day votes filter in, so we're going to see those numbers change big time, I think, in the next half hour.
Things are going to start to look a lot more like Pennsylvania.
Yes.
All right, John, thanks very much. Our Courtney Harrison is with the Cartwright campaign. Matt Cartwright, the incumbent congressman in the 8th District, running for re-election. It's a rematch against Jim Bognet. And his election night rally is in Scranton tonight at the Waldorf Social Club. That's where we find Courtney.
Hi, Scott. Yeah, the crowd is starting to fill up here. Lots of members of the Democratic Party are all here, going to be here later this evening together and kind of wait and see as results are coming in. I've been told by Matt Cartwright's team that he's probably not going to be here until after 10 o'clock because of the ballot situation in Luzerne County. So as I said, people are still starting to fill in. A crowd's slowly building up, but everyone's still kind of in a holding pattern. I don't think anyone's really going to decide, either way it's going until maybe after 10 o'clock. I don't think we'll have any real idea, but you never know. Someone could decide to declare and say that they've won, but I don't think we'll have any real results here tonight. We'll keep you posted. We'll see. We can see when he hear any of the other candidates here. We'll come back in. For now, Courtney Harrison, Newswatch 16, reporting live in Scranton.
Well, no results, but it looks like a fun party, Courtney. We'll be checking in with you nonetheless.
And of course, still 1 hour until those polls close in Luzerne County because of that paper issue earlier. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
We need some help.
I know. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. And if approved, we can have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need.
Attention Zantac users. If you or a loved one was diagnosed with cancer after regular use of Zantac, you might be entitled to financial compensation.
Call 800-838-9003.
The FDA has warned that drugs like Zantac may be contaminated with a cancer-causing agent. If you or a loved one were diagnosed with any of the cancers listed, call us for a free consultation. If you don't win, you pay nothing.
Call 800-838-9003.
I'm calling in regards about my mother, and I'm here, and I just want to thank you because it saved my mother's life yesterday. And I'd like to know the names of the people that came in and saved her so I could call and thank them. And she's doing fine. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
When you fall and cannot get up, an accident can turn into a tragedy. But with Life Alert, one touch of a button can get you help fast. Life Alert saves a person from a catastrophe every 10 minutes.
Life Alert is a lifesaver. If it weren't for Life Alert, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
For a free Life Alert brochure, call 1-800-996-9845. Call now, 1-800-996-9845. For a free brochure, call 1-800-996-9845.
Huddle up for Nittany Game Week.
Get a sideline seat with coaches Jay Paterno and Tom Bradley as they join host Todd Sadowski for expert analysis on the blue and white. Nittany Game Week, Saturday mornings at 8:30 on WN.
9:02 here on election night in Pennsylvania. Polls have been closed for an hour everywhere except Luzerne County, where they will remain open for about another hour. That's a situation that has been interesting all night long. We've been covering it on Newswatch 16. Welcome back to our live exclusive election night coverage. Scott Shaffer, Lisa Washington, Corey O'Brien, our analyst, John Meyer on the big board, and we're getting numbers.
We are starting to get some numbers in, including in that U.S. Senate race that we've talked so much about tonight, of course, between Dr. Oz and John Fetterman there. Again, very early results. Most of these are from the mail-in ballots, which you can see John Fetterman there, the lieutenant governor, with 70%, 404,000 to Dr. Oz's 27%, 156,000 there. We haven't mentioned that Dr. Oz endorsed by former President Donald Trump, so that there's the Trump effect there. We'll see just how well that plays out this evening. And we have our Chelsea Strube, who is with the Oz campaign there at the Newtown Athletic Club there in the Philadelphia suburbs. And sounds like there's a party going on, Chelsea.
Yes, Lisa, that's right. I'm in Bucks County, and when we checked in with you guys in the beginning of the night, the media outnumbered the supporters here inside this gymnasium in the Newtown Athletic Club. Now, I would say it's a little bit more on the supporter side, more supporters. I'm just going to kind of duck down because, like I said, there's about 40 different news crews here. The eyes of the nation are, the eyes of the world really, are on this Pennsylvania Senate race. So I'm going to duck down and have Lou Romeo show you a little bit of the crowd here. But the crowd is excited. The crowd is hopeful. Like you said, we have a lot of ballots, especially in Luzerne County, that will need to be counted as those polls are still not closed yet. But the vibe here with the Oz campaign is very hopeful. Oz made one of his last campaign stops in our area yesterday in Hazleton. He really tried to appeal to those independent, those moderate voters, maybe some who might be doing that split ticket voting. But there is a lot of energy in this room, a lot of hope in this room, a lot of excitement. So we'll check in with you guys later on in the night. Chelsea Strube, Newswatch 16, reporting live in Bucks County.
All right, Chelsea, thank you so much for that. And of course, we'll check in with Chelsea throughout the night there with the Oz campaign.
And she makes a good point. Oz did try to almost rebrand himself as much more moderate towards the very last stages of the campaign, but he'd been trying to paint Fetterman as radical with varying levels of success all the way through the race. We have some numbers right now from the 9th District Congressional race. This is Republican Dan Muser. He is running for a third term, the former Revenue Secretary of Pennsylvania under Governor Corbett. Muser is not expected to have a difficult time tonight as he runs for re-election. Amanda Waldman taking him on. She's a single mom, worked in the Lieutenant Governor's office. She's from Lycoming County, but that is a Republican district by registration. I have it at 5629. So Muser is obviously in a strong position for re-election tonight.
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy race, right? That's a Republican seat. We fully expect Dan Muser to be successful there. That's one that the Republicans, just assume is going in their corner. Some of these other races, not so much on the Congressional. It'll be very interesting to see the 7th, very interesting to see the 8th. As to where they end up going, but Dan Muser's safe tonight.
Yeah, I think as far as northeastern and central Pennsylvania goes, it only really seems as though the Democratic-held congressional seats are the ones that are in play. The Republican seats are solid. I mean, if anything's going to happen in those seats, it's going to be in the primaries. No one's going to beat Muser tonight. No one is going to beat Glenn Thompson tonight in the 15th. Michael Milosevic, the former mayor of Lewisburg, is back for a second bite at the apple. He tried to take on Tom Marino in what was the old 10th district 6 years ago, and it's just really an uphill climb.
And what does it tell you? What does it tell you? When the Democrats are vying for every seat and fighting for every seat, what does that tell you? It's like what the Republicans did in 2018, right? They were fighting for every seat, and now the Democrats are too. We know that the president's party loses seats. We also know that Joe Biden has the lowest approval rating right now of any president in a midterm scenario since 1934. So I mean, these factors just put Democratic seats in play. I mean, Matt Cartwright, somebody by all intents and purposes, he should be safe. Yet he's got a 3-point dogfight on his hands here with Jim Bognet, who ran really good ads.
Yeah, and we're talking about in Lackawanna County, Scranton, and Joe Biden. So, and I think we have some results, some updated results on that Cartwright race. Yeah, here we see this is 3% reporting now. Cartwright with 77% and Jim Bognet with 23%. And of course, our Nikki Kreis is with the Bognet campaign tonight. Let's check in with Nikki. How's it going over there, Nikki?
Well, Jim Bognet is not here yet, but some of his supporters have arrived, and they are telling me that they are optimistic, even though some of those results have come in. Now, Bognet did lose to Matt Cartwright by about 12,000 votes last time, but he is pretty confident that won't be the case this year. As we said, the 8th district includes parts of Lackawanna, Luzerne, Monroe, Pike, and Wayne counties. We have discussed the issues going on in Luzerne County, and Jim Bognet is a Hazleton native, so the camp here is very confident that those Luzerne County votes will be in his favor. So as we know that the polls in Luzerne County don't close until 10 o'clock. So like I said, they're feeling pretty optimistic here that when those results come in, that they will be in his favor, a lot of those votes. So we will see how that turns out. Again, the party's getting going here at the Pines Eatery in Hazleton. Supporters are starting to trickle in. We are waiting for Mr. Bognet to arrive as well. Nikki Kreis, Newswatch 16, live tonight in Luzerne County.
All right, Nikki, thanks so much again with the Bognet campaign, and we'll be checking in with Nikki throughout the night as we get more results on that race.
Bognet, second time around, we mentioned earlier, a much stronger candidate.
He's a much stronger candidate this time around. I thought the ads were very effective. They were fun ads. And then I thought really a dagger of an ad was showing Matt Cartwright voting 100% of the time with Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden. That is not the district. Mm-hmm. That's not the 8th Congressional District. They are not 100% of the time for Biden and for Pelosi. It's not the district. When you're representing a district in Congress, you have to represent those voters there. I think that is a difficult ad for Matt Cartwright to overcome, quite frankly.
And the other ad, I work for you, and he showed him, I work for you in this year, I work for you in this year. Right. It was effective ads. Bognet ran a strong campaign. Another congressional race we're watching is in the 15th district. Glenn Thompson is the incumbent Republican, and he is running now for a 7th term, the former Center County GOP chairman. This district is another one that it kind of oozes into our part of central Pennsylvania, and then it oozes back out every reapportionment. Now, however, it seems to have a pretty good chunk. The 15th includes all of Union, all of Snyder, all of Clinton County, and even part of Lycoming County. So some of these voters that Glenn Thompson represented in Clinton and Lycoming years ago, he is back, but now he has new voters in Union and Snyder as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they fall. I mean, I think, again, this is a race where there's going to be some independents that are going to make a difference here. It's a Republican area. I would think that he will, be successful tonight, but where do the independents go? Right now, I think they're moving toward Republicans, so he's probably in a good position, but we'll see.
I think the independents definitely have a stronger voice in these midterms. I mean, we that can't vote in the primary, so it is when this is their time to shine, and especially in a purple Pennsylvania, you got to think a lot about those independent voters.
I am one.
All right, we're going to move to the 109th now, and I believe we have some results on this, of course, the 109th district. This is still very early, but about 19%, and you can see Robert Ledbetter there with 60% of the vote. So this is interesting because
interesting story, yes.
The Democrat candidate there, and I don't want to mispronounce his name,
Ed Giannatasio.
Giannatasio, unfortunately, lost his battle with cancer yesterday, so he is obviously no longer able to be in this race. But interestingly enough, with 31% of the vote there, we don't know how many of those were from mail-in ballots. But
this is David Millard's seat. Millard is leaving. He has been in the State House since 2004, winning a special election after John Gordner moved over to the Senate. So Millard, after a long career in the State House, retiring. Ledbetter is a small business owner from Catawissa. He's in the beer business, and obviously the Republican is in a strong position in the 109th to begin with, but there's also a Libertarian candidate, Thomas Anderson, in here, and Anderson describes himself as the extremist candidate, so trying to outflank the Republican to the right doesn't look like it's having much of an effect here early in the race, as he's even losing to the Democrat in a district where Democrats don't necessarily do real well.
It's interesting.
Columbia County, the 109th, it's a Columbia County district.
Oftentimes, a candidate, and obviously the Democrat lost his life here, and that's unfortunate, but oftentimes, from a strategic standpoint, you want someone extreme running. If you don't have an opportunity necessarily to win head-to-head, get at least somebody else in the race, make that a little bit more of a race. I think about it in terms of Paul Konjarsky. When I ran against him in a primary election, he had another individual who was Irish from Luzerne County jump in the race, took a lot of votes. Paul Konjarsky just beat me, but he beat me by the margin of that third-party candidate.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So it's interesting. So oftentimes the politics will come around to try to help that candidate. So the Democrats could have been, a part of that as well, believe it or not.
Gotcha.
We have a number of state legislative races that we're keeping an eye on. Some of the numbers are rolling in from those as well, and we'll take a look right now at the numbers that are popping in.
I think the 113th, is that right? We get some numbers there. Yes, Kyle Donahue and Aaron Sapkowski in this race. And again, still very early, but you can see Donahue there, the Democrat, 77% to Sapkowski's 23%. And again, 23% of the polling precincts reporting there. Donahue, the Scranton City Council member.
Scranton-based seat here, Marty Flynn's seat before he went off to the Senate. Donahue kind of ironically defeated Patrick Flynn, who is Marty's cousin, I think, in the primary. But Donahue, as the city council president in Scranton, certainly has a leg up, has organization. That seat is mostly a Scranton seat. Tom Welby had it as an interim fill-in. He chose not to run for a full term. So Donahue is, again, in a pretty strong position there.
All right. Looking now at the 114th with Bridget Kozorowski, hope I got that right, and David Bergerhoff there. And these, again, still early numbers. You see Kozorowski with 83%, so a commanding lead, but still very early. And David Bergerhoff, Kozorowski, of course, a registered nurse from Clark's Summit. She is running for a third term. She was first elected back in 2019 to replace Sid Michaels, who died. She was unopposed in the primary. And Bergerhoff runs a lawn care and a home cleanout business and chosen to replace Colin Haley, who dropped out after running unopposed in the primary. And Bergerhoff lost to Marty Flynn back in 2016.
And this district has certainly been rejiggered to favor the Democrat. It's a lot more of the city of Scranton. It was mostly a Clark Summit Newton Ransom district when Kozorowski first won it. Now it has a big chunk of the city of Scranton, so that is to her advantage.
For sure. She's in a very strong position. I think the incumbents really are in strong positions in their local House races.
Okay, and we're going to share some results also from the 118th, I do believe. Yes, there we are.
This is a race a lot of people have been keeping an eye on. Yep.
James Haddock, of course, from Pittston Township. He's works as a manager for Luzerne County, clerk of courts. He was a former mayor of Avoca. And then, of course, James may be a familiar name to some, a former PennDOT spokesman from Ranson Township. And Haddock there was 73%. And there was some traditional media advertising, some commercials with this campaign. I was kind of surprised to see the number of ads that we did in this one.
Harrisburg weighed in on this. Money came in from Harrisburg on both sides. This was a Democratic seat for a long time. Mike Carroll held it. He's retiring. The district is a little bit different now. It includes now parts of Lackawanna County where James May lives, because May ran in the 114th against Bridget Kozorowski 2 years ago and lost. Well, now he's in an entirely different district. It's an open seat. He's running against Haddock. Both sides want this one bad.
Haddock, I think, is in a strong position, but I have to tell you, I like the way James May has campaigned. He knocked on my door. I think people knocking on doors, that's retail politics. That's what you should be doing, going out there, talking to voters, and not just hiding behind either a commercial or some direct mail piece, but getting out there and working hard. And I saw him in communities throughout the area doing that. So I love that kind of politics. It's retail politics. It's what politics should be all about. It's what government should be all about. Knocking on doors, getting to know your constituents, and representing them well. Don't know if he has enough to win tonight, but I love that retail politics.
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground. And your own boots.
All right, let's check in with John now to get some updated numbers. And you're looking at the Senate race again.
Yeah, we're looking at the Senate race, the governor's race, looking at a lot of different races. And again, guys, what we're still seeing is a lot of those mail-in votes that are being reported. Election day are starting to filter in here. I want to point out, like Lackawanna County just dumped their mail-in ballots. And so that is showing Fetterman 77% to 19%, an 18,000 to 4,000 vote lead. That's all mail-in. That almost exactly matches the number of Democrats that voted by mail versus Republicans that voted by mail in Lackawanna County. That's just one example. So that's showing the difference with those mail-ins because it's so predominantly Democrat. I want to show you one interesting thing that we're seeing. Allegheny County is where John Fetterman is from. Obviously, he's in a lead in this early votes, especially at so many mail-ins, 74 to 24. An interesting thing in Allegheny County, where Fetterman is from, Shapiro is doing a little bit better. Josh Shapiro doing a little better, the Democrat there. I want to show you something else that is kind of interesting statewide that we're going to be paying very close attention to. This is early. These percentages are going to change dramatically. But look, Fetterman 63, Oz 34. The governor's race, not that big of a difference, about a 4% difference in that. The polls showed those races would be much different, that Shapiro would win much bigger. That's not what we're seeing so far. But of course, all this can change. Some of the other counties that we're starting to see more results filter in that we expected, like Lycoming County is in, Mastriano's in the lead there. Lycoming County is a very Republican county. Same thing with Oz over Fetterman. But remember, this early in the game, Philadelphia has a big lead and a lot of votes reported. And back to that Allegheny County, there's a 123,000 vote difference right there because they reported so early that the rest of the state is going to make up. So this is all going to change dramatically. And we talked about that 8th district with Jim Bognet against Matt Cartwright. Most of the mail-in votes are in early. We're only seeing the results here. Lackawanna makes up a big part of that. So we're seeing that from those mail-ins there. And remember, there's a big chunk of Luzerne County. The polls aren't closing there for another 40 minutes. Jim Bognet is from Luzerne County. It's going to be really hard to know what's happening in this race, even if every single vote is counted in these other counties. If we don't have Luzerne, it's going to be tough to know what's happening in this race. We'll be able to see how strong either of them is doing in the other counties, but Luzerne's the key to that race, so we're going to be waiting on that. So there's a lot of different things playing out right now, guys, but we are seeing as we watch Fetterman Oz, the numbers for the Republican keep ticking up, and we're going to see that continue as that day of vote. We know Republicans came out strong today across Pennsylvania. Democrats came out strong in the mail-in. The big question is, how strong did the Republicans come out, especially in the strong Republican areas of what's considered the T?
Thank you, John. My question is, how crucial is Luzerne County going to be? Okay, we know the polls close at 10 o'clock, right? We get those results. What about those people who went in to vote when they didn't have the paper and did those provisional ballots? Are we going to need to get to those votes? Is Luzerne County going to be that crucial in seeing some of these results?
Our Jack Culkin has been following I keep calling it a situation, I don't know a better word for it, in Luzerne County all night. There was no paper, not enough paper to run the machines in a couple of precincts earlier in the day. That forced some people to either have to leave and come back or cast provisional ballots, as Lisa said. Jack Culkin is following it for us, and he joins us live. Jack.
Scott, Corey, and Lisa, here at Kistler Elementary Center in Wilkes-Barre City, there was no problem with paper today for today's elections, but voters and workers at Hunlock Township's polling sites were outraged, disgusted, and just plain sad with how Luzerne County has handled the ballot paper shortage. Since 9:30 this morning, the Hunlock Township polling site
So when they're voting on the machine, they get a paper saying, oh, hey, this is what you voted. You know, you voted, you put it in the scanner, you're done.
Every time that there is an election, it's always a problem in Luzerne County. So, no, I don't feel comfortable with it, and I'm not going to vote until they get here with the paper for the ballot machines.
Now, people in Hunlock Township are still allowed to vote. They are just voting on provisional ballots that are being printed as needed on standard copying paper. Now, the Luzerne County Bureau of Elections is aware of the paper shortage, as we all know, but because of the paper issue at some other polling locations around Luzerne County, a county judge ordered that all voting locations in Luzerne County remain open until 10 p.m. tonight. Jack Culkin, Newswatch 16, live in Luzerne County.
The whole world is watching Luzerne County tonight again for all the wrong reasons. It's getting national news coverage. Luzerne County itself, these problems in Luzerne County, you said embarrassing.
No paper, and they're saying it's because of a high voter turnout. We know this is the midterms when people were saying it is important to vote. Everyone was pushing it, so you should have paper. You should have paper.
Do you think? Latest numbers in the Senate race right now. Oz versus Fetterman. Again, talk about the whole world is watching. John mentioned it the last time we had the big board up, that the numbers are starting to narrow, and they're going to narrow. This race is going to tighten. It's going to be razor thin by the end of the night. But in the early returns, John Fetterman, the lieutenant governor, the Democrat, he is up big. It's not going to last. Republican Mehmet Oz is coming up strong and will continue to gain. We haven't talked much about the third, fourth, and fifth candidates in this race. Are they going to get enough votes to make any kind of difference?
I don't think so. I think this is really Fetterman and Oz. You're going into that voting booth thinking one of those two candidates, thinking either the Democrat or the Republican. Remember, the Democrats have been thinking for at least 2 years that this was going to be a pickup seat. They have counted it in the Democratic column. The Republicans, for them to just field a candidate and now potentially win this race, that's a big win just to sustain the seat. This seat was really up for grabs 2 years ago. I mean, when you looked at the Joe Biden election, I mean, really you thought, Democrats are going to be in a very, very strong position. But again, here we come with that midterm. Here comes the midterm. Joe Biden's, approval rating down. All of a sudden, Republican candidate really has a great chance here. Plus, you said it earlier, Scott, he changed his message late in the race. And it's really important to think about when he did that. He did it in mid-October. Before mid-October, John Fetterman was just up, and he was up big in the polls. And then in mid-October, something changed, and it was the messaging. When Oz started to move from trying to paint Fetterman as a radical and just paint himself as a moderate, the needle started to move, the race started to tighten, and now all of a sudden it's a dead heat, statistical dead heat and tie here. So that message change in October was important. Without that change, Fetterman coast to victory here. But you have to give the Republican strategist, some credit here for making this a competitive race. If we were looking at this in September, it wasn't real competitive.
It even looked like the Republicans were bailing out of it at one point after the unforced error with the Wegner's video. That was really dreadful. It looked like the Republicans were just going to let him, wither on the vine and put their money elsewhere. But he, to his credit, Oz, came back in and made it a competitive race, and the Republican money came back in too.
How surprised were you to see Oz as a candidate? We're going to get to that in just a minute. Of course, we want to welcome in all of you who are joining us for Your Voice, Your Vote 2022 Election Day coverage here on WNEP and now WNEP2 as well. We're talking about the U.S. Senate race, of course, the eyes of the country into Pennsylvania interested in this race. Our Corey O'Brien, my question to you was, Dr. Oz as a candidate, were you surprised?
Yeah, you're looking to gain name recognition.
Right.
In politics, name recognition is very important. So you either have to buy that through a lot of fundraising and then a lot of television, or you come to the race with it. So from a strategy standpoint, from a political consulting standpoint, you're always looking for candidates who already have the name ID. That's half the battle. And so I think that Oz was a great choice by the Republicans. His campaign faltered for most of this election cycle, quite frankly. He found his footing in mid-October and has done a really good job from a messaging standpoint since then. But that name ID gave him a big leg up. Any other candidate's going to come in here and have to raise millions of dollars just to go out there and introduce themselves to the public. Dr. Oz didn't have to do that, could skip a whole step there.
Okay, speaking of names, Oprah and Fetterman, when she gave the endorsement this week. That's a big name as well. Was it too late? Does that have an effect?
It's never too late. When it's Oprah, it's never too late. I think it does have an effect. I mean, there will be people who will vote for him just because Oprah said to. It's her mystique. I don't know what it is, but people, and sometimes, I listen to her too sometimes. I mean, she just has a way about her that you just trust.
We have numbers coming in these races that we are discussing tonight, and of course the Senate race is the big one that all of the nation is watching, and it has been Fetterman so far. But again, these are early numbers, and Dr. Oz is creeping up closer and closer, and we expect that to continue as the trend goes along throughout the evening. We're also watching, of course, the congressional races, the race for governor. We have live reports at a number of spots around the state tonight with all of the major candidates.
And I believe we have some of the results now from that governor's race with Shapiro, of course, and Mastriano. Again, still very early, but this is Josh Shapiro leading now with 11% reporting. You see his 66% to State Senator Doug Mastriano's 32%. And I'm hearing now from my producer that we have one race that has been called. Is that the PA House race? Is that for the 112th? Am I correct with that?
Looks like the 112th has been called and the 114th has been called. The 112th is Kyle Mullins running for re-election. That is the Lackawanna seat, Lackawanna County seat in the Mid-Valley area. It runs up, I believe, to Carbondale. Kyle Mullins has won third term fairly easily over William Torbeck from Dunmore. He's a machinist union rep. We also have a winner in the 114th. That's Bridget Kozorowski. She has won a third term. Yes, third term. The registered nurse from Clark Summit, carving herself out a very solid career in the State House now over the last 4 or 5, now to be 6 years.
And so we see that with 23% there, this race is already being called there. So, Corey, to your point about, the incumbents in the state races may be pretty safe tonight.
Tip O'Neill, all politics is local. You like your local representative, you hate the institution. These are two people who just have done a good job, right? So politics matters, but then when you get into office, you have to execute. You have to get the job done. And these are two representatives who've just done that, and they're rewarded tonight on election night.
We have our first winners of Election Night 2022, and you saw it here on WNEP and WNEP2. Our Election Night coverage continues on WNEP2 for another half hour. It goes right into Newswatch 16 at 10 on WNEP2 as we will continue to update the numbers throughout the night. But once we start getting those first winners, it's only a matter of time. This thing is going to be, the floodgates are going to open, and we're going to start to really have a good idea of what's going on.
And of course, the polls are closed everywhere except for Luzerne County. You still have until 10 p.m. if you're in Luzerne County to get out and cast your ballot.
Our coverage continues on the Deuce.
It does indeed. Of course, this is your voice, your vote. And again, we're still waiting to get those results as we talk about these races. And we will continue this coverage here on WNEP2. So again, a long night ahead of us, but it's good to see some results finally coming in, some races being called.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break here on WNEP2. Stay with us. The first winners can only mean there's more to come, and you're going to see it first here on the Deuce. Stick around.
So, what do you think?
We're prepared to offer cash.
When you get great deals at Denny's,
$5.99.
You'll start to expect great deals everywhere. New all-day diner deals starting at $5.99. 10 delicious meals, only at Denny's.
Oh, yeah, dude, that doesn't look good.
I know what to do. I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, I can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need.
Attention hernia mesh users. If you had a hernia mesh implant that was surgically removed or revised after 2010, you may be entitled to substantial compensation. Call 800-631-6222 now or go to meshclaim.com.
There are a lot of words I would use to describe my daughter. Kind, strong, hilarious. When I think about how much she's experienced in her life, on a journey that we're now on together as a family,
I'll make you something to eat, okay?
we can't help but be inspired by her every day.
Hey, Mom. We're about to start the movie. Oh, yeah, I'll be right there. Okay.
So really, we're the lucky ones. Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Carve up the slopes without carving up your budget. The WNEP Ski Card is back to save you hundreds. Ski Montage Mountain, Ski Big Bear, Ski Sawmill. Ski up to 6 mountains in our region for a fraction of the price. Just $119 at WNEP.
You are watching Your Voice, Your Vote 2022 here on WNEP2. Of course, we are streaming on WNEP Plus, on Fire TV and Roku, also the WNEP app. So thanks to all of you for watching wherever and however you are watching us tonight as we are getting results from the election, of course. And something we haven't talked about, a couple of questions in some areas were on the ballots today.
Yeah, so one in Carbon County is about conservation. It's asking voters if they want to borrow $10 million and put towards conservation efforts. And, well, that is certainly a resounding vote so far. 67% in. I would say that the yes is going to take it on the Carbon County environmental referendum tonight.
And we're talking about things like land, water quality, working farms, and wildlife habitats. They're up to $10 million in Carbon County. Also, the 109th toll has been called.
Ledbetter is your new state representative-elect in the 109th district. This is the Columbia County district. Ledbetter is a businessman from Catawissa. He is taking over the seat that David Millard is leaving after a number of terms, a long career. Millard retiring, Ledbetter, the new Republican, taking over the 109th district seat in Harrisburg. So we have 3 winners so far. He's our first Republican, a couple of Democrats in the Scranton area. and much more to come.
That's right. And of course, our John Meyer is standing by at our big board with some results coming in, mostly from the mail-in, but I do think we may be starting to see some that are coming from actually voting today now.
As Scott said earlier, it will start to look more like Pennsylvania. It's starting to look more like Pennsylvania. You're starting to see all that red start to fill in as we're getting more and more of this election day voting. Early on, it was almost all mail-in. Now we're seeing election day votes to come in. And look at the red. I want to show you the difference. So this is the Senate race right now. 56% for Fetterman to 40% for Oz. I just want to show you, this was the 2020 presidential election. So you see all that red and just some blue, but remember, Biden won Pennsylvania. So that is a difference. That was looking back at the 2016 when Toomey won. A lot of red for Toomey when he won in 16. So I want to show you something that we're also going to be tracking as we get more and more numbers. Like, look at Northumberland County. And we can see the difference here. So this is Oz and Fetterman. Oz up with 69% to 29%. So how did Trump do in Northumberland County? Oz is ahead right now of where Trump was with Northumberland County. If Oz can do better than Trump in a lot of these counties, he has a really good chance of winning Pennsylvania because Trump carried this whole area big time. So that is something we're going to keep an eye on. We don't have enough counties that have a lot of results in to be able to determine that, but it's something we're going to watch. Lackawanna County, we're seeing quite a bit of numbers come in. What we expect out of Lackawanna County, a Democrat to be in quite a bit of a lead. We've got Fetterman 61 to 36% for Oz in Lackawanna County. Remember, Philadelphia, big lead for Fetterman. Allegheny County, big lead for Fetterman. That's where he's from. That's where a lot of Democrats are. So the rest of the state is what's going to fill that in. Governor's race now. Let's look at the total right there for the governor's race. Shapiro was 61% to Mastriano 36%. Again, a lot more votes to come from rural Pennsylvania. We're going to see these numbers change a lot. Another thing we're watching closely, what's the difference between the Shapiro race and Mastriano and the Fetterman? So far, they're running, you see that Fetterman 56%, Shapiro 61, about 5 points difference. Mastriano close to 37%, Oz at 41%, about 4 points difference. That's a lot closer than what the polls are showing. So it'll be interesting, or were showing. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Another thing that we can watch as this goes on, we'll turn on the heat map here. And this is showing the strength of the lead in the different counties. And we're really starting to see Pennsylvania become Pennsylvania, where you see the lead of the Republican in a lot of the state is very strong. The lead of the Democrat in the very Democrat areas is very strong. It all tends to balance it out. We're a split state. That's when it's going to get interesting when we get more numbers. I want to bring it out to the 8th district with Cartwright versus Jim Bognet. This is one that's going to be interesting. So we've got Wayne County now with Bognet in the lead, 53 to 46. Pike County, Cartwright has a pretty big lead, although Pike tends to be Republican. We'll see how that sorts out. Monroe County now, Bognet has a lead. Cartwright, where he's from in Lackawanna County, a big lead. But we're not going to have Luzerne County. The polls don't even close there for 25 minutes. So that's going to be another interesting thing to pay attention to. So guys, this is still early to sort things out, but it is interesting as we watch, as we just keep seeing the state fill in with all this red and see this number for the Republican gain. We're going to start to get more of a feel of how this is playing out. And when we really can look at those counties, how they're doing now compared to 2020, I think it's going to tell us a lot of how this might be going when we look at that. Let's just, for example, right now, let's look at Pittsburgh. Allegheny County, this was the lead now, Fetterman 72 to 25. Biden won 60 to 39. So Fetterman is well ahead of where Biden was, but there's a lot more to be counted. I mean, look, 429,000 he got then to 196 then. So a lot more to come, but those are the kind of things we're going to be able to watch in the next hour or so.
All right, John, thanks very much. We saw a similar situation in 2010 when Corbett won very easily in the governor's race, but Toomey against Sestak, that went late into the evening, and it turned out that Toomey ended up winning. The Republicans won governor and Senate that year, but it took late into the night for Toomey to win, different from Corbett, who was at the top of the ticket and won easily.
If you look at the polls in this race, John Fetterman has been up in the polls the entire time, except for a change on November 3rd. On November 3rd, all of a sudden, Oz pulled to even and has now been slightly ahead. When I say slightly ahead, today he's up by less than a percentage point. Here's the deal. One day matters. The day you peak, you want that day to be today. right? So today's the only day that matters. If it's true, and it looks, one of the things that John has there, 5 percentage points behind. If this plays out, and I think it may, if Fetterman continues to be 5 percentage points behind Shapiro in the race, he loses. He loses this race. We're at a dead heat. If Oz peaks and peaks today, let's remember, Hillary Clinton was always beating Donald Trump. Donald Trump beat her on one day. That was election day. That poll's the poll that matters most. Oz could be in a similar situation, almost not winning with Fetterman the entire race from a polling standpoint, but today peaks. If these numbers hold and Fetterman continues to be about 5 percentage points back, I don't think he can win the race tonight.
That'll be something to keep an eye on.
Well, let's check in with the Fetterman camp. Our Chris Keating is in Pittsburgh there at Stage AE. And I think you said to breathe and have hope. What was the term you told us earlier, Chris? What's the message there tonight?
Well, the message here tonight is breathe and relax and take it easy. You know, these numbers are going to come in. It's going to be a process. It's going to take a while. They don't expect anything to be solved tonight. Now, I want to show you this. A lot of people have made their way into Stage AE here in Pittsburgh. Almost every seat is full. I have my cameraman Corey panning to the crowd here. It's packed pretty deep. It's a good-sized crowd here. Many people are filled. There's a lot of nerves, anxiousness, but excitement in the air between John Fetterman supporters, many of which know that this election is going to be a process, and it probably won't end tonight. Now, just a few moments ago, before we went live, Mayor of Pittsburgh, Ed Gainey, took the stage. It was our first action of the night on the stage. He pumped up the crowd, gave a pretty fiery speech about John Fetterman's track record, not only here in Braddock, but also across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And earlier, we also saw Giselle, John Fetterman's wife, mingling and interacting with the crowd, and the 3 kids here were also here too. You can tell there's been a real energy shift in this building as well. There was also a pretty loud cheer when early numbers came on the screen behind me showing that Fetterman was in the lead. So we'll continue to keep you updated on all the sights and sounds of everything happening here at Stage AE as the night progresses. Reporting live in Pittsburgh, Chris Keating, Newswatch 16.
All right, Chris, thanks so much for that report. Of course, we all know Braddock, where John Fetterman is from. He has it tattooed on his arm, the zip code there, 15104. So this is going to be the race to watch. And again, I don't think we will have those results tonight.
We also want to mention the Carbon County referendum question that has passed. That is a winner. So voters in Carbon County have approved that referendum on borrowing money for conservation issues.
And I believe we have some more results coming in. This is going to be from the 7th district, of course. This is the Susan Wild, the Lisa Scheller race there. And 33% Susan Wild, the incumbent, seems to be winning with 52% of the vote there.
Wild and Scheller, a rematch from 2020. Scheller, the former Lehigh County commissioner and business owner. Wild is running for her third term. Yes, the district by registration favors the Democrat, but again, we've mentioned before that now this district also includes all of Carbon County. That does not favor the Democrat. So we'll see how Wild survived a close re-election over Scheller 2 years ago. Now she is facing her again with a different configuration of a district that they're running in.
Right.
It's going to be a different result.
We would expect that some of these votes would be Democratic votes. It'll be interesting once some of the outlying Republican votes come in to see if this moves. It's interesting that the latest polling data in this race shows the same results. Susan Wild at 52% and Lisa Scheller at 48%. Interesting thing here is 44% of this district are Democrats, 44 Republicans, and 10% are independents. Like we've been saying all night long, where are the independents going to go at the end of the day? We would expect them to come in a little bit later in this district. So it'll be interesting to see whether the polling is right on and there's a 4-point margin here for Susan Wild, or whether the independents could upset this race a little bit and come in late and make a difference.
We have another winner in a state legislative race, and we've been talking about Carbon County. Let's stay there. Doyle Heffley is the incumbent state representative in Carbon County, and he has won re-election to another term.
A 7th term.
Doyle Heffley, 7th term, yeah, the former trucking executive from Carbon County. Richard Coast from Palmerton, an independent contractor. He was in a difficult position, uphill climb against Heffley. So Heffley's heading back to Harrisburg for another 2 years in Carbon County.
And again, a number of these districts, as we've been saying, are redrawn, so they are a little different than they were previously. But in some instances, they're not all that different from how they were before.
Yeah, the Heffley's district has been Carbon County, I think, for the last couple of terms. Hasn't really changed much at all since Keith McCall retired. So Heffley heading back, I don't think he had a whole lot to worry about there. So we are starting to see now a number of races being called. We are at about almost a 9:45. So that's about the time we start to see these races really start to come in year after year. Unfortunately, the ones we really care about, we might not know tonight. And one of those is the 8th District Congressional race. Jim Bognet is the Republican, second bite at the apple trying to unseat Matt Cartwright. Our Nikki Kreis is with the Bognet campaign at the Pines in Hazleton. Good evening, Nikki.
Hello, Scott, everybody. I don't think we're ready to call this race anytime soon, especially since the polls here in Luzerne County don't even close for at least another 15 minutes. Jim Bognet arrived here at the Pines Eatery in Hazleton a couple of minutes ago, and he was greeting his supporters. Some of his supporters have been trickling in throughout the night, waiting for election results. And as we said, the 8th District includes parts of Lackawanna, Luzerne, Monroe, Pike, and Wayne counties. But like we just said, those results from Luzerne County won't be in for quite a while. The polls don't close until 10 o'clock tonight. And that is what the people here are waiting for, since Jim Bognet is a Hazleton native, and they are expecting some strong results from here in Luzerne County. And we will keep you updated from the Pines Eatery throughout the night. Nikki Kreis, Newswatch 16, live in Luzerne County.
All right, Nikki, and we will be checking in with you throughout the night as we get those results and to see how things are going with the campaign there.
Here are the numbers as we see them right now. In the 8th District, Cartwright has the early lead, but again, look at that, just 3% of the votes are in. The fact that there's no Luzerne County votes coming in yet, that's going to hold us back for a while tonight. Luzerne County polls are open for another 15 minutes. Courtney Harrison is with the Cartwright campaign at the Waldorf Social Club in the East Mountain of Scranton tonight. Courtney.
Hi, Scott. It's starting to get a little bit more lively here. We've got some of our candidates starting to roll in. Bridget Kozarowski got here a few minutes ago. Kyle Donahue also just walked to the door. They're starting to stream in. The feeling is getting a little bit warmer, a little bit brighter here. We're still waiting on Matt Cartwright to get here again. He is expected to get here sometime after 10 o'clock. His campaign said they were going to wait until after the polls closed in Luzerne County to decide, where they stood, where the numbers stood. It's very positive here. The music is upbeat, so all the folks here are upbeat, just kind of waiting to see what happens, if we can find out anything tonight. So we'll hopefully hear more from him a little bit later on when he gets here. For now, Courtney Harrison, Newswatch 16, reporting live in Scranton.
All right.
Thanks, Courtney. Of course, we had certainly expected both Donahue and Kozarowski to win, so we knew there'd be some winners at the Democratic Party tonight, but the Cartwright race for them is the biggie, and not just for them, but for a lot of people as well.
And that's the one we'll be watching. Of course, she says he's not even expected there until after 10 o'clock tonight. That's after the polls close in Luzerne County.
Don't often say that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what John has for us in that district, just because I'd love to know the breakdown of that Luzerne County vote. That's going to be an important vote in that race, and we may not know that for a while. So that's going to be that could swing the tide, I think, but it'll be interesting to see where those votes are coming in from early on here.
We saw earlier that Bognet had an early lead in Monroe County. I think that's a bellwether in that district, that if Bognet wins Monroe County, I think he's in a real good spot. But again, the district's a little bit different, so it's going to be, we don't know exactly how it's all going to play out, but I thought Monroe County was really kind of the swing in the way that district is configured, and if Bognet is winning there, that bodes well for him.
More purple, and I think right now we have some numbers from the 9th District. We talked about this earlier with Dan Muser and Amanda Waldman there, and again, 38%, so we're getting more numbers in, and Muser, the incumbent, with 71% to Waldman's 29%. Of course, Muser running for his third term in Congress.
51,000 vote difference there. I don't see anything changing with that. Dan Muser is going to be heading back to Washington almost certainly. Again, the two Republican congressional seats that are part of northeastern central Pennsylvania, it's Meyer and Thompson, and both of those seats are going to easily go back to the incumbents. They're both going to win re-election, we can safely say. It is the two Democratic-held seats that we are keeping a very close eye on. Susan Wild in the Lehigh Valley-based 7th, and Matt Cartwright in the northeastern Pennsylvania-based 8th. Those are the important races that we're watching.
And I don't know if I hope that we will have the results in those tonight, but I don't know. Maybe this one, maybe the Thompson-Milosevic we may have. Thompson.
This one's all but over, 54,000 votes separating them. Milosevic is the former mayor of Lewisburg. Thompson is the incumbent congressman, and he is running for his 7th term. Thompson from Center County, Milosevic from Union County now part of the 15th Congressional District.
And we're going to take a quick break, but we will be right back with lots more of Your Voice, Your Vote 2022. Stay with us.
Everyday wins make your day that much better. So play FanDuel Casino's Reward Machine for your free chance to win up to $2,000 in casino bonus every day, only on FanDuel Casino.
Do you listen to the TV on high volume or have trouble hearing conversations? Then you would benefit from hearing aids. Don't waste thousands on expensive hearing aids when you can get Nano's revolutionary technology for just $297. Don't be fooled by higher-priced hearing aids. The CIC Recharge is a true hearing aid, not an amplifier. With rechargeable technology many customers say is superior to more expensive models. Call now and get not one, but 2 Nano hearing aids for just $297. Plus, we'll add a portable charging case and ship your order absolutely free. The CIC Recharge has a tiny in-the-ear canal design that is nearly invisible. Why keep missing out on important conversations or waste thousands of dollars? Call and get 2 CIC Recharge hearing aids for only $297 and free shipping.
800-431-9756. Again, that's 800-431-9756.
This is an important alert from Pintus & Mullins Law Firm. Attention hernia mesh users. If you or a loved one received a hernia mesh implant after 2010 and it required repair or removal surgery, you may be entitled to substantial compensation. Some manufacturers knew that mesh implants might cause serious injuries. Settlement negotiations with manufacturers have begun. Call 800-605-6555 now, or go to meshclaim.com for a free case review. There is limited time to file a claim, so don't wait.
Everyday wins make your day that much better. So play FanDuel Casino's Reward Machine for your free chance to win up to $2,000 in casino bonus every day, only on FanDuel Casino.
Exclusive live coverage, Your Voice, Your Vote 2022 on WNEP2. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. A lot to get to, a number of races, and they're getting closer.
We're going to smooth right into Newswatch 16 at 10 in just about 10 minutes here on WNEP2, but let's talk about the race at the top of the ticket. Governor of Pennsylvania, Shapiro, the Attorney General, Mastriano, the state senator, and a number of candidates from other parties. But Shapiro has been leading all night. He has cracked the million mark of votes right there, as Mastriano is about 325,000 votes behind. We're up to 27% of the state reporting. This is certainly going to get closer. Shapiro's not going to win this race by 18%, but Mastriano has a hill to climb, and there's not a whole lot of people who are giving him a chance to climb that hill.
And I think, again, this race, I think, comes down to a lot of the campaigning, the familiarity of the names, and just, the way that they campaigned over several months. We're talking 6-7 months, and we didn't see as much from Mastriano, definitely not in the traditional media sense.
Shapiro has had the lead in this race since day one. Mastriano has never introduced himself to voters. You need to buy airtime, introduce yourself, then you introduce your opponent, and then you tell them why you're better. That just didn't happen in this race. He never introduced himself. You can't say, I'm not going to do any media free media. I'm not going to raise money and put myself on television and think you're going to have an opportunity to win. That just doesn't happen in politics. You can do all the social media, you can do all the Facebook you want, you can do all the door knocking you want, but on a statewide race, it's not going to get the job done.
And you really just look to the primaries for an example of that. Dave McCormick in the Republican primary. Nobody knew who Dave McCormick was at the end of 2021, but by mid-2022, most of the state, anyone following politics, knew exactly what he was. He bought ads, he introduced himself, he set the tone of the race as he wanted to set it, and he darn near knocked off Oz. He would have knocked off Oz had Oz not gotten the endorsement of the former president.
You always want to make sure that you introduce yourself before your opponent does it for you.
Exactly.
Right. Because you don't want to have to react. We are going to move to that U.S. Senate race now. We do have some updated numbers for you. This is the one everyone is watching with John Fetterman, the lieutenant governor, and Dr. Mehmet Oz. It's getting closer now. We see Fetterman with 53% of the vote, Oz 45%. The difference there, about 144,000. This is 30% of the vote reporting. So still a ways to go. And we'll be looking, I guess the one thing to think about, is Shapiro able to pull Fetterman on to victory? We think that Shapiro's done a great job. He's had this lead. Corey, I'll take this one to you because is the support for Shapiro strong enough to pull over a John Fetterman who may need that extra help?
Does a governor have coattail effects? We know presidents do one way or the other.
Right.
Does a gubernatorial candidate have that? We know that Josh Shapiro has been in ads for state Senate and state House races throughout the state of Pennsylvania. That's unheard of in your own election cycle. So they believe he has some coattails. Will it be enough? What are we seeing so far, Lisa? We're seeing this gap. We're seeing this 5 percentage point gap between Shapiro, Fetterman. That doesn't bode well. That would suggest that Pennsylvania is, in fact, potentially going to split ticket. Pennsylvania typically doesn't split the ticket. But if there's any year for that to happen, it'd be this year. There were a lot of tumultuous things that happened in that race. You have one individual who suffered a stroke, unfortunately. You had somebody else who really pretty much isn't from Pennsylvania running. So there's just these unique facts and circumstances in this race that make it the toss-up that it is, and that may cause that split ticket effect, which we typically don't see in Pennsylvania.
Governor Senate split ticket hasn't happened since '86. President Senate split ticket has happened a few times since then, most recently in '04. So we're talking almost 2 decades. And more than that when you're talking about governor Senate splitting the top of the ticket. That was Bob Casey and Arlen Specter. So that's how far back we're going, to 1986. We have some updated numbers in the 7th congressional race. This is the one between Wild and Scheller, based in the Lehigh Valley, but also encompassing part of our region in the Poconos especially. Up to about a third of the votes now having been tallied, and Wild still holding on to that pretty big lead, but the polls don't indicate that this is going to be a large deficit for either candidate. It's going to be very close by the end of the night. So Scheller, we saw on John's big board, really dominating in Carbon County. That's the newest part of the 7th District, right. Carbon County. We knew that was going to give the Republican candidate a boost, but it's like about a 10,000 vote boost in Carbon County that Scheller has that she didn't have 2 years ago. 10,000 votes can make a big difference.
Think about this. Susan Wild came in when? Special election 2018, the blue wave, that 40 seats went against Donald Trump. He was president. Could you imagine if she loses tonight on a red wave, with Joe Biden having the lowest approval of any president at this point in modern history? It could happen.
Could happen.
The polls say that this is a statistical dead heat. I think you're going to see that Carbon County vote will matter here as we go on further in the night.
10,000 is a big number.
Big number. Let's look at the 8th district now. Cartwright and Bognet. That one is also one that all eyes are on, and it continues to tighten as well. Now up to 37% of the vote having been tabulated. Cartwright continues to lead, but again, we're waiting on Luzerne County. About 5 more minutes till the polls close in Luzerne County.
I think about the campaigns with this one, and I think that they both did, they spent obviously a great amount of money with this, but it's the personal effect of that. And so we will see if that makes a difference. Both of those candidates watching this race and, of course, many others across Pennsylvania.
We are live on WNEP. We have been live on WNEP2 all night long here on Election Night 2022. Scott Shaffer, Lisa Washington, Corey O'Brien with analysis, John Meyer on the big board. The numbers are coming in. We have a number of winners in State House races, state legislative races. Races have already been called in a number of places, but the big ones are still out there, and those numbers are coming in slowly but surely.
Don't think we will have all of those numbers tonight, especially in maybe the big S, that U.S. Senate race there. But it is good to see that the numbers are coming in now beyond those mail-in ballots. And we were talking about the money that was spent on these campaigns. We're seeing the results of some of that now, John. I know you're watching the numbers closely, and this is that Senate race.
Yeah, speaking of money, a lot of money was spent on this Senate race, and it is getting closer. We are seeing the big difference as this map fills in with a lot of rural Pennsylvania reporting their vote totals. Dr. Oz now trailing John Fetterman by about 7.7% as he has been gaining, and we're actually seeing that happen rather significantly recently. I just want to show you real quickly, like this was Pennsylvania 2 years ago, the Trump-Biden race, and so this was Pennsylvania when Pat Toomey won. There is a lot of red that comes in Pennsylvania, and so we're seeing those numbers come in now, and that is going to determine the strength in red Pennsylvania compared to Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and then there aren't many numbers yet. Look at, this is Montgomery County, one of the biggest in the state. There's only a few thousand votes total. So we don't know how the Philadelphia suburbs are going to go. We don't know any of that. We're also watching the governor's race. Josh Shapiro with a big lead over Doug Mastriano. I do want to point out one thing that's interesting. That race is 7 points apart. This race is 7 points apart. There's different totals, but they're both 7-point difference percentage-wise between those two races. So we're keeping a close eye on that as well. The Congressional District, Jim Bognet trailing Matt Cartwright. Luzerne County, still no numbers, but we're seeing him, Matt Cartwright lead in Lackawanna. Bognet right now ahead in Wayne and Monroe. And again, Carbon County is providing a little bit of a help for Lisa Scheller, but a lot more to come, guys, in that 8th district in the Lehigh Valley.
All right, John.
Yeah, 7th district in the Lehigh Valley. Yep. With a lot of the numbers have changed. They change so often. It's hard to keep all the congressional districts right. We're going to be live on WNEP2. We'll see you at 11. And we are live on WNEP2. We're going to head right into Newswatch 16 at 10, where we'll continue to update all of the races that we've been covering here throughout the night.
That's right. And of course, our coverage continues right here for those of you streaming as well on WNEP+. And we have crews spread out across the number of campaigns to bring you live reports as the night grows on with those election results.